I found out my lakefront property was gone on a Wednesday morning in February when I couldn't get through my own front gate. The keypad blinked red 3 times, made an angry beeping sound, and displayed a message I had never seen before. Access denied, property under new ownership. My hands were already numb from the bitter cold, and the snowstorm that had been battering northern Wisconsin for the past 48 hours showed no signs of letting up. I stood there in my truck, windshield wipers working overtime, staring at that message like it was written in a foreign language. My name is Harrison Edwards, and until that moment, I thought I owned one of the most beautiful pieces of property on Lake Superior. 3 acres of prime waterfront, a custom-built log home I had spent 2 years designing, and a view that made every penny of my life's savings worth it. I'd purchased the property 5 years ago, right after my divorce was finalized, and I needed a fresh start. The Northwoods Estates, HOA, had seemed like a minor inconvenience at the time, just another bureaucratic layer that came with owning property in an upscale development. I paid my dues on time, kept my lawn maintained, and generally stayed out of everyone's business. I pulled out my phone and tried calling the HOA office. No answer. I tried the property management company, straight to voicemail. The snow was coming down so hard now that I could barely see 10 feet in front of me. I backed my truck up and parked on the side of the road, my mind racing through possibilities. There had to be a mistake. Maybe the gate system was malfunctioning. Maybe someone had entered the wrong code into the database. But that message kept replaying in my head. Property under new ownership. I grabbed my laptop from the passenger seat and used my phone as a hotspot, pulling up my email despite the terrible signal. It took 3 tries to load my inbox, and when it finally did, my stomach dropped. Buried under 2 days of spam and work emails was a message from Northwoods Estates HOA, time-stamped from Monday evening at 6:47 p.m. The subject line read, "Final notice, property line sale completed." My hands shook as I opened it. The email was brief and coldly professional. It informed me that due to outstanding HOA fees totaling $8,300, and after numerous attempts to contact me, the HOA had exercised its right under Wisconsin state law to place a lien on my property. Furthermore, because I had failed to respond to their certified letters and notices, they had proceeded with a foreclosure sale. My property had been sold at auction on Monday, February 10th at 2 p.m. The winning bid was $35,000. I had 48 hours to vacate the premises. I read it 3 times, certain I was missing something. $8,000 in fees? I'd set up automatic payments through my bank 5 years ago. I pulled up my banking app and checked my transaction history. Sure enough, there were monthly payments of $250 going to Northwoods Estates HOA, like clockwork, every single month. The last payment had cleared just 2 weeks ago. The snow was accumulating on my windshield faster than the wipers could clear it. I needed to get somewhere warm and figure this out, but I was 20 minutes from the nearest town, and the roads were getting worse by the minute. I tried the HOA office again. Still nothing. Then I tried calling my neighbor, Tom, who lived 3 houses down. He picked up on the 4th ring. "Harrison? That you?" His voice sounded strained. "Tom, something crazy is happening. I just got locked out of my own property. The gate says it is under new ownership. Did you hear anything about this?" There was a long pause. "Yeah, I heard something. Brenda came around yesterday with some people. They were putting up new locks on your place. I asked her what was going on, and she said you had defaulted on your HOA payments. I told her that did not sound right, but you know how she is." Brenda. Of course. Brenda Morrison, the HOA president and the bane of my existence for the past year. She was a 52-year-old woman who treated the HOA like her personal fiefdom. She had moved to Northwoods Estates 3 years ago with her husband, some retired executive from Milwaukee, and had immediately run for the HOA board. Within 6 months, she had maneuvered herself into the presidency and had been making everyone's life miserable ever since. "Tom, I have never missed a payment. I have proof in my bank account right now. They sold my house. They actually sold my house." "Jesus, Harrison, that is illegal, is not it? They cannot just sell someone's house like that." "I do not know, man. I need to find a lawyer. Do you know anyone?" "Not up here. We are pretty remote. You might have to go down to Ashland or Duluth. But Harrison, this storm is getting bad. They are saying it might be the worst one in 20 years. Roads are already closing down. I looked out at the wall of white in front of me. He was right. This was not just a typical Wisconsin snowstorm. This was the kind of storm that killed people who were stupid enough to be out in it. "Can I crash at your place?" I asked, "just until this blows over?" "I wish you could, but we left yesterday morning. We were down in Madison with my daughter. I tried to call and tell you we were leaving, but it went to voicemail. We were not going to risk getting trapped up there." Of course, I had been in Milwaukee for a work conference since Sunday, which was why I had not been home. I had driven straight through from Milwaukee that morning, racing against the storm, trying to get back before the roads became impassable. My phone had died during the conference, and I had not checked my messages until I was already on the road. "All right. Thanks anyway." I hung up and sat in the truck trying to think. The nearest hotel was in Bayfield, about 30 miles away. In good weather, that was a 40-minute drive. In this storm, it could take 2 hours if I even made it. But I did not have much choice. I could not stay here. I was about to put the truck in gear when another call came through. Unknown number. I almost did not answer it, but something made me pick up. "Is this Harrison Edwards?" A woman's voice, crisp and professional. "Yes. Who is this?" "This is Patricia Schultz from Northwoods Estates Property Management. I am calling regarding your property at 4782 Lakeshore Drive. I wanted to personally inform you that your property was sold through HOA foreclosure proceedings on Monday, and you need to remove all personal belongings within the next 48 hours. After that time, anything remaining on the property will be considered abandoned and will be disposed of." The audacity of this woman. "You cannot sell someone's house without proper notice. I have been paying my HOA fees every single month for 5 years. I have bank statements to prove it." "Mr. Edwards, I understand you are upset, but the HOA followed all legal requirements. You were sent multiple notices over the past 6 months regarding delinquent special assessment fees. When you failed to respond or pay, the board had no choice but to pursue foreclosure." "Special assessment fees? What are you talking about? I never received any notices." "According to our records, 3 certified letters were sent to your property address. They were all returned as unclaimed. We also sent multiple emails to the address on file. You did not respond to any of them." What email address?" She read off an email address I had never heard before. It ended in an old AOL domain that I had not used in over a decade. "That is not my current email address. I updated my contact information 3 years ago when I changed email providers. I filled out the form and submitted it to the office." "I am looking at your file right now, Mr. Edwards, and I do not see any updated information. The email on file is the one from your original purchase agreement." This was insane. Even if that were true, you cannot just sell someone's house worth $500,000 for $35,000 because of $8,000 in fees. That is theft. The special assessment was not $8,000. "Mr. Edwards, it was $42,000. I nearly dropped the phone. "What?" "The HOA board approved a special assessment of $42,000 per property owner 18 months ago to fund the new community center and upgrade the private marina. All property owners were required to pay the assessment in full within 90 days or set up a payment plan. You did neither. When the 90-day period expired, late fees and interest began accruing at 18% annually, as outlined in the HOA bylaws. Your total debt at the time of sale was $58,637. My head was spinning. I never agreed to any $42,000 assessment. I never even heard about it until right now. Again, Mr. Edwards, multiple notices were sent. If you did not receive them, that's unfortunate, but it does not change the legal requirements. The foreclosure was conducted in accordance with Wisconsin state statutes. The sale is final. I suggest you make arrangements to collect your belongings as soon as possible. If you continue to refuse to vacate, we will have no choice but to involve law enforcement." "This is not over," I said. "I am going to fight this." "That is your right, Mr. Edwards. However, I should inform you that by purchasing property in Northwoods Estates, you agreed to binding arbitration for all disputes with the HOA. Any legal action must go through our arbitration process, which typically takes 6 to 9 months. In the meantime, the sale stands. Have a good day." She hung up. I sat there in the truck, watching snow pile up on the hood, trying to process what had just happened. They had sold my house, my home. Everything I owned was inside that house, and they had given me 48 hours to get it out during one of the worst snowstorms in decades. I thought about calling the police, but what would I even say? Apparently, this was all legal. They had followed some process, sent some notices to the wrong address, and now I was homeless. I thought about calling a lawyer, but it was Wednesday afternoon during a blizzard. Even if I could find one willing to take my call, what could they do? The sale was already completed. Then I remembered my brother, Michael Edwards, Attorney General of the state of Wisconsin. We had not talked in almost 6 months, not since our father's funeral. We had always had a complicated relationship, made worse by the fact that he had sided with my ex-wife during the divorce. But he was still my brother, and he was the highest-ranking law enforcement official in the state. I pulled up his contact info and hit call. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. Of course, he was probably in some important meeting. I left a message. Mike, it is Harrison. I know we have not talked in a while, but I need your help. Something really bad just happened. My HOA just sold my house out from under me during this snowstorm, and they are claiming I owed them $58,000 in fees I never even knew about. They are saying it is all legal, but this cannot be right. Please call me back when you get this. I'm kind of desperate here. I hung up and sat in silence for a moment. The truck was getting cold. I needed to make a decision, stay here and freeze, or risk the drive to Bayfield. I chose the drive. The roads were even worse than I had expected. Highway 13 was barely visible, just a narrow path between walls of snow. I passed 2 cars that had slid off into ditches. The wind was howling so hard that it rocked my truck every few seconds. My phone rang when I was about 10 miles outside of Bayfield. I almost did not answer it because I needed both hands on the wheel, but I saw it was Michael. I hit the speaker button. Mike? Harrison, I just got your message. What's going on? I told him everything, starting from the gate denying me access, through the email about the foreclosure, and ending with the phone call from the property manager. He listened without interrupting, which was unusual for him. Michael was a prosecutor at heart, always ready with questions and objections. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then he said, "Where are you right now?" "Driving to Bayfield. I cannot get into my house and I need somewhere to stay until the storm passes." "You are driving in this?" "Harrison, the governor just declared a state of emergency. They are closing down all major highways in the northern part of the state." "Well, I did not have much choice. My house is locked up with all my stuff inside, and I was about to freeze to death in my truck." "Okay, listen, get to Bayfield and hole up somewhere safe. I'm going to make some calls. What you are describing sounds like a massive violation of your due process rights. Even if the HOA had a legitimate lien, they cannot just sell your property without proper notice and opportunity to cure. The fact that they sent everything to an old email address that they knew was outdated is particularly problematic. They are claiming I never updated my contact information." "Did you?" "Yes. I filled out a form at the office 3 years ago when I changed email providers. I specifically remember it because Brenda was there, and she made some snide comment about people who cannot keep their email addresses straight." "Brenda?" "Brenda Morrison, the HOA president. She is the one behind all this, I'm sure of it. She has had it out for me ever since I filed a complaint about her cutting down trees on common property without board approval." "When was that?" "About a year ago. She wanted to clear-cut this beautiful stand of old growth pines to put in a volleyball court. I rallied some other homeowners, and we got enough votes to block it. She has been making my life hell ever since." I heard Michael typing on his keyboard. "Give me the exact name of the HOA and the property management company." I gave him all the information I had. He was quiet for a moment, then said, "All right, I am pulling up the Wisconsin HOA database now. Northwoods Estates, Bayfield County, incorporated in 2008. Board president listed as Brenda Morrison. There's a Patricia Schultz listed as the registered agent for the management company. That is the woman who called me. Okay, I am also seeing some red flags here. There have been 3 formal complaints filed with the state against this HOA in the past 2 years. 2 were about improper assessment procedures, and 1 was about failure to maintain proper financial records. None of them were resolved because the complainants dropped their cases. Why would they drop their cases? Usually because the HOA threatens them with more legal fees or finds some way to make their lives miserable. It is a common tactic with abusive HOAs. They know most people cannot afford to fight them in arbitration or court, so they just bully people into submission. My truck hit a patch of ice, and I had to fight to keep it on the road. Mike, I need to focus on driving. Can we talk about this when I get to the hotel? Yeah, of course. Be safe. I'm going to start making calls. This is not going to stand, Harrison. I promise you that. He hung up and I focused on the road. The last 10 miles to Bayfield took almost an hour. By the time I pulled into the parking lot of the Bayfield Inn, my hands were cramping from gripping the wheel so hard, and I could barely feel my feet. The hotel was an old 2-story building that looked like it had been there since the 1950s, but it had a vacancy sign lit up in the window, which was all I cared about. I checked in with a tired-looking desk clerk who seemed surprised to see anyone out in the storm. The room was small and smelled faintly of mothballs, but it was warm and had a bed. I collapsed onto the mattress and closed my eyes for a moment, trying to process the fact that I had lost my home in the span of a few hours. My phone buzzed. It was Michael again. I just got off the phone with the Bayfield County Register of Deeds, he said without preamble. The foreclosure sale was recorded on Monday at 4:15 p.m. The buyer is listed as Northern Properties, LLC. I ran that company through the state business registry. And guess who owns it? Brenda Morrison? Brenda Morrison and her husband, Gerald Morrison. They formed the LLC 6 months ago. Harrison, your HOA president bought your house at the foreclosure auction. She engineered this whole thing so she could buy your property for pennies on the dollar. I sat up straight. That has to be illegal. It is absolutely illegal. It is fraud, self-dealing, and about 6 other things I can charge her with. But here's the problem. Right now, on paper, everything looks legitimate. She followed the letter of the law as far as the foreclosure process goes. To prove fraud, I need to show that she intentionally prevented you from receiving proper notice and that she manipulated the assessment process to target your property specifically. How do we do that? We need to get into the HOA's records, financial statements, meeting minutes, email correspondence, everything. Under Wisconsin law, HOA members have a right to inspect the association's records, but given that they just kicked you out, I doubt they're going to voluntarily hand anything over. So what do? I'm going to file an emergency petition with the Bayfield County Circuit Court first thing tomorrow morning, asking for a temporary restraining order to stop any further action on the foreclosure and demanding access to the HOA records. I am also going to open a formal investigation through the Attorney General's office into the HOA's practices. If I find what I think I am going to find, Brenda Morrison is going to wish she never heard your name. Tomorrow's Thursday. How fast can this move? In a normal situation, it could take weeks. But I'm the Attorney General, and this involves potential criminal fraud. I can expedite things. The bigger problem is this storm. All the county offices are closed until further notice. The roads are shut down. Nobody's going anywhere for at least the next 24 to 48 hours. I felt a surge of frustration. So I just have to sit here and wait while Brenda gets away with stealing my house? Harrison, I know this is hard. But right now, you need to focus on staying safe and gathering whatever evidence you have. Bank statements showing your HOA payments, any correspondence you have had with the HOA, copies of any forms you submitted. I need you to document everything. All my files are in my house, the house I cannot get into. Do you have online banking, email archives, anything stored in the cloud? I thought about it. Yeah, I should have most of my bank records online, and I use Gmail, so all my emails are backed up. But I do not think I have any emails from the HOA about these assessments because they never sent them to my current address. That is fine. The absence of communication is actually evidence in our favor. Just compile what you have, and I will work on getting a court order for the rest. In the meantime, I want you to write down everything you remember about your interactions with Brenda Morrison. Every conversation, every complaint, every incident, dates and times if you can remember them. I am building a pattern of behavior case, and I need as much detail as possible. Okay, I can do that. Good. Get some rest. I will call you in the morning with an update. He hung up, and I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall. I pulled out my laptop and started going through my files. My bank statements were easy enough to access. Sure enough, there was a $250 payment to Northwoods Estates, HOA, every single month for the past 5 years, never late, never missed. I downloaded them all and saved them to a folder. Next, I went through my email. I searched for anything from Brenda Morrison or the HOA. There were a few routine messages from 3 and 4 years ago, meeting notices, reminders about snow removal policies, that sort of thing. But nothing about any special assessment, nothing about any delinquent fees. The most recent email I had from them was from over a year ago, a terse message from Brenda warning me that my continued agitation regarding board decisions was creating a hostile environment in the community. I remembered that email clearly. It had come right after I had organized a petition to recall her from the board. We had gotten 40 signatures out of the 65 homeowners in the development, but before we could submit the recall petition, Brenda had called a special meeting and pushed through a bylaw change that required a 75% vote to recall a board member. It was a completely self-serving move, and half a dozen homeowners had been furious about it. But by then, people were tired of fighting her. The petition died. I started writing down everything I could remember about my conflicts with Brenda, the tree-cutting incident, the recall petition, the time she had sent me a violation notice because my garbage cans were visible from the street, even though they were in my garage and could only be seen if someone walked up my driveway. The time she had tried to fine me because my grass was supposedly 2 inches too tall, which turned out to be false when I hired a surveyor to measure it. On and on it went. By the time I was done, I had a 5-page document detailing 2 years of harassment. It was almost midnight when I finally closed my laptop. The storm was still raging outside, wind howling against the windows. I turned on the TV and found a local news station. The meteorologist was explaining that the storm was stalling over Lake Superior, drawing moisture off the lake and dumping it across northern Wisconsin. Some areas had already gotten over 3 feet of snow, and they were expecting another 2 feet by Friday morning. All major highways were closed. The governor was urging people to stay home and avoid all unnecessary travel. I thought about my house, sitting there empty with all my possessions inside, my furniture, my clothes, my father's watch that he had given me before he died, the photo albums from my childhood, everything. Brenda Morrison and her husband were now the legal owners, and if I did not get it back, they could do whatever they wanted with it all. I tried to sleep, but my mind would not stop racing. I kept replaying the phone call with Patricia Schultz, the property manager. Something about her tone had bothered me. She'd been too prepared, too rehearsed, like she'd been expecting my call and had her answers ready. That suggested this was not just a bureaucratic screw-up. This was planned. Around 2 in the morning, I gave up on sleep and opened my laptop again. I started researching Wisconsin HOA law, foreclosure procedures, and homeowner rights. The more I read, the angrier I got. Wisconsin law did allow HOAs to foreclose on properties for unpaid assessments, but there were strict requirements for notice and due process. The HOA had to send multiple written notices to the homeowner's address of record. They had to provide an opportunity to cure the default. They had to give the homeowner a chance to contest the lien before proceeding with foreclosure. If what Michael said was true, and they had deliberately sent notices to an email address they knew was outdated, then they had violated my due process rights. But proving that was going to be tricky. I needed to show that they had actually received my updated contact information and had ignored it. I pulled up my email again and searched for any confirmation that I had updated my information with the HOA. Nothing. Then I remembered that I had not submitted the form by email. I had filled out a paper form at the office and handed it directly to the office manager. What was her name? Something with a C. Carol? Carla? No, Christine. Christine something. I wondered if Christine still worked there. If she did, she might remember me submitting the form. She could be a witness. I made a note to ask Michael to subpoena her. The next morning, I woke up to 18 inches of fresh snow and a text message from Michael. Court hearing scheduled for tomorrow at 10 a.m. via Zoom. Judge Palmer is signed. She's fair. We have a shot. I called him immediately. That was fast. I told you I'm prioritizing this. I also sent a formal letter to the HOA and Northern Properties LLC, informing them that they are under investigation by the Attorney General's office and ordering them to preserve all records related to your property. If they destroy or alter anything, it is obstruction of justice. Do you think that will scare them? It should. Brenda Morrison might be arrogant, but I doubt she wants to go to prison. I also reached out to some of the other homeowners in your development. I found 2 of them who said they had similar problems with improper assessments and notices. They are willing to testify. Who? A couple named Robert and Susan Chen. They live 4 houses down from you. They said Brenda tried to foreclose on them last year over a disputed $5,000 assessment, but they were able to fight it off by hiring a lawyer. They said the experience nearly bankrupted them, and they have been terrified of her ever since. I remembered the Chens. Nice people, kept to themselves. I had not realized they had been through something similar. That is good, right? It shows a pattern. Exactly. It shows that Brenda has a history of using foreclosure as a weapon to control homeowners. Combined with the fact that she bought your property herself, it paints a picture of predatory behavior. Judge Palmer is going to see right through this. What about the special assessment? Is there any way to challenge that? I am looking into it. According to the HOA bylaws, any special assessment over $10,000 requires a vote of the full membership. I am trying to get access to the meeting minutes to see if that vote actually took place. If it did not, then the entire assessment is invalid and the foreclosure is void. How do we get the meeting minutes? That is what tomorrow's hearing is about. I am asking Judge Palmer to order the HOA to turn over all their records immediately. Once I have those, I can start building the criminal case. Criminal case? Harrison, if Brenda Morrison did what I think she did, she is guilty of fraud, embezzlement, and abuse of power. This is not just a civil dispute anymore. This is a criminal matter, and once I prove it, she is going to be arrested. The word arrested sent a jolt through me. I had been so focused on getting my house back that I had not really thought about Brenda facing criminal charges. But Michael was right. She had stolen my property. That was a crime. How long will all this take? I asked. Eso. If everything goes our way tomorrow, I should be able to get a temporary restraining order that freezes the sale and gives you access to your house while we sort this out. The criminal investigation will take longer, probably a few weeks. But the important thing is stopping them from doing anything else with your property in the meantime. Okay? What do you need from me? Just be ready for the Zoom hearing tomorrow at 10. Dress professionally, stay calm, and let me do most of the talking. The judge might ask you some questions, but just answer honestly. Do not get emotional or angry, even if Brenda or her lawyer says something that pisses you off. We need to look like the reasonable party here. I can do that. Good. I will send you the Zoom link tonight. Get some rest. The rest of Thursday passed slowly. The storm was still going strong, and I was stuck in the hotel room with nothing to do but watch TV and refresh my email every 5 minutes. Around dinner time, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Mr. Edwards? A man's voice, smooth and professional. Yes? My name is Jeffrey Davenport. I am an attorney representing Northwoods Estates HOA and Northern Properties LLC. I understand you have retained the services of Attorney General Michael Edwards to contest the foreclosure of your property. That is right. Mr. Edwards, I want to be frank with you. This is a losing battle. The foreclosure was conducted in full compliance with Wisconsin law. You're going to spend a lot of time and money fighting something that is already a done deal. My clients are willing to offer you a settlement. What kind of settlement? We will allow you 30 days to remove your personal belongings from the property, and we will refund you $5,000 as a gesture of goodwill. In exchange, you agree to drop all legal challenges and sign a general release waiving any future claims against the HOA or Northern Properties. I laughed. I could not help it. You're offering me $5,000 for a house worth $500,000? Are you serious? Mr. Edwards, your house is not worth $500,000 anymore. The market has shifted, and lakefront properties in Bayfield County have declined in value significantly over the past year. Our appraisal puts the value at approximately $350,000. After you subtract the $58,000 you owed in assessments and fees, plus the costs of the foreclosure, you are looking at a net equity position of maybe $200,000. We purchased the property for $35,000 at a lawful auction. That is the market value we established. You do not have a claim to anything beyond that. Except I never owed $58,000. I never even knew about this so-called special assessment until 2 days ago. That is because you failed to update your contact information with the HOA and ignored all certified mail sent to your property address. That is your responsibility, Mr. Edwards, not ours. Now, my clients are offering you a generous settlement to avoid a protracted legal battle. I suggest you take it. Tell your clients they can go to hell. I will see them in court. That's unfortunate. I should warn you that if you continue with this frivolous litigation, my clients will countersue for legal fees and damages. You could end up owing them even more money. Is that a threat? It is a statement of fact. Have a good evening, Mr. Edwards. He hung up. I sat there staring at my phone, my hands shaking with anger. The audacity of these people was unbelievable. They had stolen my house and were now threatening to sue me if I tried to get it back. I called Michael immediately and told him about the conversation. They are getting nervous, he said. That is a good sign. If they were confident in their legal position, they would not be trying to settle. The fact that they are offering you anything means they know they are in trouble. He threatened to countersue me for legal fees. Let them try. You have the Attorney General of Wisconsin representing you. No judge is going to award them fees when we prove they committed fraud. Just ignore them. Tomorrow we go to court and we start taking them apart. The Zoom hearing started exactly at 10 o'clock Friday morning. I was sitting in my hotel room, dressed in a button-down shirt and tie, my laptop positioned on the desk so the camera showed a neutral background. Michael appeared in his office, looking every bit the Attorney General in a dark suit and red tie. Judge Palmer was a woman in her 60s with short gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Brenda Morrison appeared on the screen, along with Jeffrey Davenport. Brenda looked exactly as I remembered her blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun, too much makeup, and an expression that suggested she was annoyed to be there. She was wearing a pearl necklace and a blazer that probably cost more than my truck payment. Judge Palmer started the hearing by asking Michael to explain the basis for his emergency petition. Michael laid it out clearly and methodically. He explained that I had been paying my HOA dues faithfully for 5 years. He explained that the HOA had sent notices about a special assessment to an outdated email address, despite having my current contact information. He explained that the HOA president had purchased my property herself at the foreclosure auction, creating an obvious conflict of interest. He explained that there was evidence of a pattern of abusive foreclosure practices targeting homeowners who challenged the HOA board. Then he dropped the bombshell. Your Honor, I have obtained testimony from the former office manager of Northwoods Estates HOA, a woman named Christine DeWitt. Ms. DeWitt was employed by the property management company from 2019 until she was terminated 6 months ago. She has provided a sworn affidavit stating that she personally processed Mr. Edwards' updated contact information in 2022 and entered it into the HOA database. She also states that in late 2023, Brenda Morrison ordered her to change Mr. Edwards' contact information back to his old email address. When Ms. DeWitt questioned this action, she was told it was a clerical correction. Ms. DeWitt now believes she was fired because she knew too much about the HOA's improper practices. Judge Palmer's eyebrows went up. Mr. Davenport, do you have a response to this? Jeffrey Davenport looked like he had just been hit with a brick. Your Honor, I was not aware of this alleged affidavit. This is the first I am hearing of it. I would need time to review the document and investigate these claims. The affidavit was filed with the court this morning at 8 a.m., Michael said smoothly. You should have received a copy via email at that time. Davenport was frantically typing on his laptop. I do not see it in my inbox. Perhaps you should check your spam folder, Michael said, or maybe update your email address. I had to suppress a smile. Judge Palmer did not bother to hide hers. Mr. Davenport, I am going to give you 5 minutes to locate this affidavit and consult with your client. We will take a brief recess. The judge muted herself, and I saw Brenda and her lawyer having a heated conversation off camera. Brenda looked furious. Davenport looked panicked. Michael sent me a private message in the Zoom chat. We've got them. 5 minutes later, Judge Palmer came back. Mr. Davenport, have you had a chance to review the affidavit? Yes, Your Honor. My client denies these allegations. Ms. DeWitt is a disgruntled former employee who was terminated for performance issues. Her affidavit is not credible. That is for me to decide, Judge Palmer said. Right now, I have a sworn statement from a former employee stating that the HOA deliberately sabotaged Mr. Edwards' ability to receive notice of the assessment and foreclosure. That's extremely troubling. It goes to the heart of due process. Your Honor, even if we accept Ms. DeWitt's version of events, which we do not, the fact remains that Mr. Edwards had multiple opportunities to stay informed about HOA business. Meeting notices are posted in common areas. Agendas and minutes are available upon request. The special assessment was discussed at multiple board meetings over the course of several months. Mr. Edwards chose not to attend any of those meetings or request any information. His failure to stay engaged with the HOA is not our fault. How many of those meetings were held during normal business hours? Michael asked. Davenport hesitated. I would need to check the records. I can tell you, Michael said. According to the meeting minutes that were finally provided to us yesterday evening, all 6 of the meetings where the special assessment was discussed were held at 2 p.m. on weekdays. Mr. Edwards works full-time as an engineer. Most of the homeowners in Northwoods Estates work full-time. Holding all critical meetings during business hours when most members cannot attend is a clear attempt to limit participation and push through unpopular decisions. Judge Palmer was making notes. What about the vote on the special assessment itself? Mr. Davenport, you said this assessment was properly approved by the membership. How was that vote conducted? It was conducted at a special meeting on June 15th, 2024. How many homeowners attended that meeting? Another hesitation. I believe it was 12. Out of how many total homeowners? 65. So 18% of the membership voted on a $42,000 assessment? Your Honor, the bylaws only require a quorum of 15% for special meetings. 12 homeowners met that threshold. Did all 12 vote in favor? No, Your Honor. The vote was 9 in favor, 3 opposed. Judge Palmer looked directly at Brenda on the screen. Mrs. Morrison, you are the HOA president, is that correct? Brenda unmuted herself. Yes, Your Honor. Did you vote on this special assessment? Yes, I did. And did you disclose to the membership at any point that you intended to purchase properties that went into foreclosure over unpaid assessments? Brenda's face went red. I did not purchase Mr. Edwards' property with the intention of profiting from foreclosure. I purchased it because I believed it was in the best interest of the community to keep the property under local control rather than letting it go to an outside investor. That is not what I asked you. Did you disclose your intention to purchase foreclosed properties before the assessment vote? I did not have that intention at the time of the vote. When did you form the LLC that purchased Mr. Edwards' property? Brenda glanced at her lawyer. Davenport said, Your Honor, I do not think my client should be required to answer questions about her private business dealings. This is directly relevant to the question of whether she had a conflict of interest. Mrs. Morrison, when did you form Northern Properties, LLC? August 2024, Brenda said quietly, 2 months after the assessment vote. And when did Mr. Edwards first become delinquent on his assessment payments? September 2024. So you formed a company to buy foreclosed properties, and then 1 month later, you initiated foreclosure proceedings against a homeowner who had been a vocal critic of your leadership. Do you see why that might look problematic? Your Honor, I followed all legal requirements. I did nothing wrong. Judge Palmer closed her laptop and looked directly into the camera. Here is what I am going to do. I'm granting Mr. Edwards' request for a temporary restraining order. The foreclosure sale is hereby frozen pending a full hearing on the merits. Northern Properties, LLC is prohibited from taking any action related to the property, including changing locks, removing belongings, or interfering with Mr. Edwards' access. Mr. Edwards is restored to possession of the property immediately. Furthermore, I am ordering Northwoods Estates HOA and Northern Properties LLC to turn over all financial records, meeting minutes, email correspondence, and related documents to the Attorney General's office within 5 business days. Failure to comply will result in sanctions and possible contempt charges. We will reconvene for a full hearing 2 weeks from today. Any questions? Davenport looked like he wanted to argue, but he just said, "No, Your Honor." "Mr. Edwards, do you have questions?" Michael smiled. "No, Your Honor, thank you. This hearing is adjourned." The screen went black. I sat there for a moment, not quite believing what had just happened. My phone rang. It was Michael. "We won," he said. "You can go home." "What about Brenda? Is she going to be charged?" "Not yet. I need to review all the records they are going to turn over, but based on what we have already, I am confident we can build a criminal case. Fraud, at minimum. Possibly embezzlement if we find that she misused HOA funds. Just give me time to put it together." "How much time?" "A few weeks, maybe a month. I want to make sure the case is airtight before I move forward. In the meantime, you get your house back, and Brenda knows she is under investigation. That should be enough to keep her from trying anything else." "Thank you, Mike. I mean it. I do not know what I would have done without you." "You are my brother. Of course I'm going to help you. Now go home." The roads were still a mess, but the storm had finally passed. It took me 3 hours to drive from Bayfield back to my property. When I got to the gate, I entered my code with trembling hands. The keypad blinked green, and the gate swung open. I drove up to my house and parked in the driveway. Everything looked exactly as I had left it 5 days ago. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. It smelled like home. Over the next 2 weeks, I settled back into my normal routine. I went back to work, reconnected with neighbors, and tried to put the whole nightmare behind me. But I knew it was not over yet. Michael was still building his case against Brenda, and I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. It dropped on a Wednesday afternoon in early March. I got a call from Michael. "It is done," he said. "I just filed criminal charges against Brenda Morrison, Gerald Morrison, and Patricia Schultz. Fraud, theft by deception, embezzlement, and conspiracy. The Bayfield County Sheriff is executing arrest warrants right now." "What did you find?" "Everything. Once we got access to the HOA records, it all fell apart. Brenda and her husband have been running a scheme for the past 2 years. They approve massive special assessments, target homeowners who cannot afford to pay or who do not receive proper notice, foreclose on their properties, and buy them through shell companies. Then they resell them at market value and pocket the difference. Your property was not the first. They have done this to 3 other homeowners in Northwoods Estates. They have made over $600,000 in profit." I felt sick. 3 other people lost their homes? Yes, but we are going to make it right. I am working with the victims to get their properties back. The foreclosures are all going to be voided, and Brenda is going to repay every penny she stole, plus damages. "What about jail time?" "That is up to the judge. But based on the severity of the charges, I'm asking for 5 to 10 years. Gerald Morrison is looking at similar charges. Patricia Schultz is cooperating with prosecutors in exchange for a reduced sentence, but she is still facing felony charges." "Good. They deserve it." The trial took place in August. It lasted 3 weeks. I testified on the second day, walking the jury through everything that had happened. The prosecution presented Christine DeWitt's testimony, showing how Brenda had deliberately altered my contact information. They presented financial records showing the shell company scheme. They presented testimony from the other victims. It was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Brenda Morrison was sentenced to 8 years in prison. Gerald Morrison got 6 years. Patricia Schultz got 2 years of probation and community service. The judge also ordered full restitution to all victims. My legal fees were paid, and I received $50,000 in damages for the emotional distress and disruption to my life. The other victims received similar compensation. But more importantly, my house was officially mine again. The fraudulent foreclosure was erased from the records. I owned my property free and clear. 3 months after the trial, the homeowners of Northwoods Estates held an election for a new HOA board. I did not run, but I helped campaign for Robert Chen, the man who had testified at my hearing. He won by a landslide. His first act as president was to rescind all special assessments and conduct a full audit of the HOA finances. They found another $20,000 in missing funds that Brenda had funneled into personal accounts. It is now spring again, and I'm sitting on my deck overlooking Lake Superior. The water is calm, reflecting the blue sky above. The trees are budding, and I can hear birds singing in the distance. I think about how close I came to losing all of this, and I feel grateful that my brother was there when I needed him most. Michael and I talk regularly now. We've repaired our relationship, and he even came up to visit last month. We spent a weekend fishing and talking, making up for lost time. He told me he was proud of how I had handled everything, and that I had been brave to fight back against Brenda when so many others had given up. I told him I had not had much choice. This was my home. I was not going to let anyone take it from me without a fight. As I sit here watching the sunset over the lake, I think about all the people who live under the thumb of abusive HOAs, who are too afraid or too broke to fight back. I think about the homeowners who lose their properties to fraudulent foreclosures and never get justice. I got lucky. I had a brother who was the Attorney General and had the power to take on Brenda Morrison and win. But not everyone has that. Not everyone gets a happy ending. That is why I decided to start a foundation. With the damages money I received, I created the Homeowner Justice Fund, a nonprofit organization that provides legal assistance to people fighting abusive HOAs. We have already helped 4 families in Wisconsin save their homes from improper foreclosures. We are expanding to other states next year. Brenda Morrison stole my house during a snowstorm, thinking she could get away with it because she had power, and I did not. She did not know my brother was the state attorney general. She did not know I had resources and connections that most victims do not have. And she paid the price. But even if I had not had Michael, I would have found a way to fight. Because some things are worth fighting for. Your home is one of them. Your dignity is another. And the principle that powerful people cannot just take what they want from those who have less power, that is worth fighting for too. I take a sip of coffee and watch the sun dip below the horizon. Tomorrow I'm meeting with a family in Green Bay who are facing foreclosure from their HOA. Their story sounds familiar. Improper notices, questionable assessments, a board president with a grudge. I am going to help them fight back. Because if I learned anything from this experience, it is that bullies only win when good people stay silent. And I am done being silent. The lake is turning orange and pink now as the last rays of sunlight fade. I hear the sound of a car pulling up my driveway. It is Michael, coming for the weekend like he promised. I stand up and head inside to greet him, my brother, the Attorney General, the man who saved my home and brought a criminal to justice. But more than that, he is just my brother, the person who showed up when I needed him most. I open the door as he gets out of his car, carrying a bag and wearing a smile. "Nice place you've got here," he says, looking around at the property. "It would be a shame if someone tried to steal it." "Yeah," I say, grinning. "Good thing I know the Attorney General." We both laugh, and I realize that despite everything, the stress, the fear, the uncertainty, I came out of this experience with something I had lost years ago. I got my brother back, I got my home back, and I got my faith back in the idea that justice is still possible, even when the system seems rigged against you. As we walk into the house together, I glance back at the lake one more time. The water is dark now, almost black, with just a hint of purple along the horizon. It is beautiful and peaceful and mine, and nobody is ever taking it from me again.